Most people live their entire lives in chains, chains they never see, chains they never question. Yet the lock has been open the whole time. The only thing holding them is belief in the chain itself. What if I told you that the very thoughts you've allowed to take root are the links of those chains, and that by changing those thoughts, you could walk free today? In this video, I want to give you the key to break the chains that hold you back. Not temporary motivation, not vague encouragement, but a clear path to change your life by changing your mind. You'll see why fear, conformity, and negative thinking have held you where you are, and you'll learn how to replace them with goals, discipline, and a vision so strong that nothing outside you can stop it. Stay with me, because what we cover here will separate the 5% who succeed from the 95% who never do. Think about this. Most people believe their lives are shaped by circumstances, by luck, by what others give or withhold. That belief is the first chain. The truth is simpler and harder. You become what you think about. Every limitation in your life can be traced back to that neglected fact. These chains are not made of steel, but of habits, doubts, and old ideas, and once you see them for what they are, they lose their power. That's what we're going to uncover together. Over the next half hour, we'll explore the 3 greatest chains that hold people back: fear, conformity, and negative self-belief. Then I'll show you how to break each of them through the power of thought, clear goals, and disciplined persistence. Along the way, you'll hear why so many never rise above mediocrity, and why a small few always seem to find freedom and success. I'll give you simple, practical steps. Steps you can begin today to free yourself from the invisible prison and claim the life you were meant to live. And before we're finished, I'll share a truth that most never hear. Freedom is not only possible, it is inevitable once you master the direction of your mind. Now here's something most people never pause to realize. The first chain that holds them is not the weight of their work, not the competition, not even the circumstances of their birth. It's fear. Not the kind of fear that keeps a child from touching a hot stove. I mean the fear that paralyzes a grown man or woman from ever taking the first step toward the life they want. This fear is subtle. It doesn't shout, it whispers. It says, what if I fail? What if I lose everything? What if I look foolish? And because that voice is allowed to linger, millions of people retreat before they've even begun. Think of it this way. A great ship sits safely in the harbor. The storms are out there, the waves are unpredictable, and the captain knows it. So what does he do? He stays tied to the dock, waiting for perfect conditions. And while he waits, the hull begins to rot, the sails gather dust, and the very thing built to move across oceans becomes useless because of fear of the sea. That is the tragedy of fear of failure. It convinces people to play it safe, and yet safety itself becomes the slowest form of failure. Now, why does this matter so much? Because your life will always move in the direction of your most dominant thoughts. If you dwell on failure, you're already rehearsing defeat. You're living the loss before it ever happens. Fear programs the mind to see only obstacles. And when the mind is filled with obstacles, it stops seeing possibilities. On the other hand, when a person fills his mind with a definite goal and holds it there, he sets forces in motion that no chain can stop. You see, the problem is not that fear exists. The problem is that we let fear decide. So what's the truth most people miss? It isn't failure that destroys lives, it's the fear of it. Every successful man and woman you've ever admired has failed more times than you can count. But instead of fearing failure, they understood it as part of the process, as necessary as breathing. If you look closely at the 5% who succeed, you'll notice this one difference. They failed, and they moved forward anyway. The 95% who end up broke or defeated, they never even began, because fear stopped them at the starting line. Let me give you proof. Picture 100 men starting out in life, all believing they'll succeed. They're eager, hopeful, ready to work. By the time they reach retirement age, only 5 are successful. 1 is rich, 4 are financially independent, and the other 95? They're broke. Why? They allowed fear to guide their decisions. They feared loss more than they desired gain. They feared criticism more than they desired freedom. And so they lived chained to their fears while 5 broke free. Now, how do you break that chain? First, you must change what you allow yourself to think about. Begin to see failure not as the end, but as feedback. Each attempt teaches you, each setback points the way. Remind yourself daily that fear is nothing more than a story told in advance, a story you don't have to believe. Replace the thought, "What if I fail?" with, "What will I miss if I never try?" And then act. Because once you begin, fear starts to lose its hold. The moment you commit, the mind begins to work for you rather than against you. You see, the irony is that by trying to avoid failure, most people guarantee it. But by risking it, by daring to step forward, you invite success. The chain of fear is heavy only until you take that first step. Once you do, you'll discover the links were made of paper all along. There is another kind of fear, quieter but every bit as destructive as the fear of failure, and it keeps more men and women in invisible chains than anything else I've ever seen. It is the fear of judgment, the fear of what people might say or think, the fear of stepping out of line and being noticed. And so countless lives are lived not according to what a person wants, but according to what he thinks others will approve of. This is why I've often said that the opposite of courage in our society is not cowardice, it's conformity. To conform is to let your choices be dictated by the crowd, and the tragic part is that the crowd itself rarely knows where it's going. Consider the story of the elephant, trained from birth with a heavy chain around its leg. As a calf, it tries again and again to break free, but the chain is too strong and eventually it gives up. Years later, that same elephant, now grown with the strength to uproot trees, is tied with nothing more than a small rope. The animal never tests it. The memory of the old chain is still there, so it lives bound by an illusion. In the same way, many people could step forward and live freely, but they don't. They feel the tug of opinion, the imagined weight of disapproval, and so they never try, they never test the rope. Now, why is this fear so dangerous? Because it makes a person substitute someone else's judgment for his own. Instead of asking, "What do I want? Where do I want to go? What do I believe is right?" he asks, "What will they say if I do this? Will they laugh? Will they criticize?" And so the years pass. Goals are never written. Ideas are never pursued, because someone might not approve. This is nothing less than living in a prison without walls. The truth is, most people are not even thinking about you at all. They're too busy thinking about themselves, their worries, their own place in the crowd. And yet the fear of their opinion keeps millions chained in lives of quiet mediocrity. You can see it in the man who stays in a job he despises because he fears what his family might think if he walked away. You can see it in the woman who hides her dream because someone once told her it was impractical. You can see it in the student who follows the crowd into a career that promises security but no satisfaction, because security will be praised while courage might be questioned. In each case, the fear of judgment does more damage than any actual judgment ever could. Now, how do we break this chain? By remembering that every person must chart his own course, and that no one else can live your life for you. You and I were not put here to fit neatly into a mold designed by others. We were placed here to grow, to expand, to become what we are capable of becoming, and that means learning to listen less to the noise of the crowd and more to the quiet conviction within. Write down a goal and pursue it with determination, even if no one else ever sees it. Test the rope. Take one step toward the thing you've been holding back on because of fear of what others might think. You'll discover something remarkable. No one is watching as closely as you believed, and even if they are, their judgment cannot bind you unless you accept it. The chains of judgment are nothing more than habits of thought, and once you see them for what they are, you'll find they cannot hold you any longer. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is moving ahead in spite of it. And the moment you begin to act on your own judgment, you'll feel the weight lift. You'll find yourself free in a way that most people never experience, because you'll have broken the silent chain that keeps the 95% in line. Here's something that may surprise you. Most people never fail because of a lack of ability, or because the world is unfair, or even because opportunities are scarce. They fail for one reason that almost no one stops to examine. They follow the crowd. From the time we are young, we're trained to look around us, to measure ourselves by what others are doing, to assume that if everyone else is heading in a certain direction, it must be right. And so millions march shoulder to shoulder into mediocrity, never realizing that they've surrendered the most precious gift they possess, the ability to think and choose for themselves. Conformity is the most dangerous chain of all because it doesn't look like a chain. It looks like safety. It looks like belonging. It looks like doing what's expected. But what it really is silent surrender. Think about the study I shared earlier, 100 men all starting out at age 25 believing they'll succeed. They look alive with possibility, with that sparkle in the eye that says, I'm going somewhere. But by the time they reach 65, only 5 of them have achieved real success. What happened to the other 95? Did they lose their health? No, most of them lived out their days. Did they suffer some catastrophe? A few did, but not all. What happened is simple. They drifted into conformity. They did what everyone else was doing, and in doing so, they became what everyone else became: dependent, broke, and disappointed. The numbers are stark, but the cause is subtle. Conformity creeps in unnoticed, disguised as common sense, disguised as normal life. Now, why is this so devastating? Because when you follow the crowd, you inherit not only their actions, but their results. And the crowd, by definition, is average. Average hopes, average plans, average outcomes. If you want to see where conformity leads, walk into any workplace at the end of a long week. Look at the tired faces, the empty conversations, the resignation in the eyes of people who long ago gave up the idea that they could direct their own lives. They didn't set out to fail. They simply did what everyone else was doing, and it carried them where everyone else was going. As surely as a river carries a log downstream, conformity carries men and women to places they never chose. One of the most vivid pictures of this comes from the natural world. Scientists once placed processionary caterpillars on the rim of a flower pot, each one following the tail of the one in front. Around and around they marched, in a perfect circle, for days on end. Food was placed just inches away, but because none of them dared break formation, they starved to death within reach of nourishment. That is the power of conformity. When a person stops thinking for himself, when he believes that safety lies in doing what the majority does, he can spend a lifetime marching in circles, never realizing that freedom and abundance were within reach the entire time. So how do you break this chain? You begin by asking different questions. Instead of asking, what is everyone else doing? Ask, where do I want to go? Instead of measuring your progress against the crowd, measure it against your own goals, your own vision of a worthy ideal. It doesn't take rebellion for the sake of rebellion. It takes the quiet courage to think, to step off the circle, to set your own course. And the moment you do, you stop drifting with the 95%, and you start moving with the 5 who succeed. The difference is not in intelligence, not in luck, not even in opportunity. It is in the decision to think independently, to live deliberately, to stop marching with the crowd. When you step away from conformity, you will feel resistance, both within yourself and from those around you. But remember, the crowd is not your master. Their results are proof enough of where conformity leads. And once you see that clearly, the fear of being different loses its power. Better to walk alone in the right direction than to march with the crowd toward nowhere. There's a quieter form of conformity that robs more lives than the blatant following of the crowd, and it's this: settling for mediocrity. It often doesn't happen all at once. It creeps in gradually, so quietly that most men never even notice it until years later when they look back and wonder where their fire went. At some point, a man who once had big dreams begins to tell himself that good enough will do. He accepts a job that doesn't challenge him, but it pays the bills. He stops learning because he believes his school years were enough. He stops setting new goals because he's already achieved what others told him was respectable. And yet, deep inside, he feels a gnawing emptiness, the unmistakable knowledge that he's living beneath his potential. That is the fruit of settling for mediocrity. I once spoke with a lawyer who, by every outward measure, was a success. He had the income he'd worked for, a fine home, a wife and children, a respected position in his community. Everything was in order, exactly as he had planned it years before. And yet, he confessed to me, with a look of quiet despair, that the enthusiasm had gone out of his life. He said, "For no reason that I can put my finger on, I find myself listless, unhappy, and tired of it all." What happened to this man is what happens to millions. He had achieved his goals, but he never set new ones. Life without a new direction, without a new challenge, without a new worthy ideal to work toward, begins to lose its meaning. What he called unhappiness was simply stagnation. He had settled into mediocrity without even realizing it. Now, why is this chain so dangerous? Because mediocrity doesn't come with alarms or warning bells. It feels safe. It feels secure. It feels like balance. But it quietly robs a person of vitality, of joy, of that spark that makes him leap out of bed in the morning. When you settle for mediocrity, you trade the excitement of progress for the dullness of repetition. You may have comfort, but you lose growth. And here's the truth. The human being was not made for comfort alone. We were designed to grow, to expand, to press toward new horizons. When that drive is stifled, the result is boredom, frustration, even depression. It's not that life has turned against us, it's that we have stopped moving. So how do you escape this chain? You never stop setting goals. You never let yourself believe that you've arrived. The moment one goal is reached, another must be set. Not because you are greedy for more, but because growth is life itself. A novelist who finishes a book immediately begins thinking of the next. A builder who completes a house is already dreaming of the next project. The most alive people you'll ever meet are those who are always reaching, always striving, always moving toward something larger than themselves. The moment you stop, the chain of mediocrity wraps itself around you, and you begin to decay long before your body gives out. Settling is easy. Anyone can do it. That's why so many do. But freedom, growth, real success, these are reserved for the few who refuse to settle, who keep alive the habit of setting worthy goals and working toward them each day. If you feel that dullness creeping into your life, if you wake up with no anticipation for the day ahead, it's not because life has cheated you, it's because you've stopped asking more of yourself. Set a new goal, no matter how small. It may be to learn a new skill, to build a new habit, to serve in a new way. Whatever it is, let it stretch you. The cure for mediocrity is not comfort, it is challenge. And when you rise to it, you'll feel the chains begin to fall away. There is a chain even heavier than fear and subtler than conformity, and it is the one forged in the quiet corners of the mind where a man tells himself, "I can't." You've heard it in others. Perhaps you've heard it in yourself. "I can't start that business. I can't change careers now. I can't learn something new at my age." These two small words, repeated often enough, become the bars of a prison that no one else has built, and yet one that keeps millions locked in place. The tragedy is that most of the time it isn't life telling us what we can't do, it's us telling it to ourselves. And the mind, obedient and faithful, goes to work to make that belief true. Every one of us is today the sum total of all the thoughts we have allowed to dominate our minds up to this very moment. That isn't poetry, that is law. If you've allowed thoughts of weakness, limitation, and doubt to take root, you'll see their reflection in your circumstances. If you've fed your mind the steady diet of "I can't," your life will echo back with proof that you didn't. It's like planting weeds in a garden. The soil doesn't argue. It doesn't say, "These aren't useful, let's throw them out." No, the soil takes whatever is sown, nourishes it, and brings it to life. Your mind works the same way. Thoughts are seeds, and they don't care whether they're weeds or flowers. They will grow and multiply according to what you plant and tend. Now, why is this so important? Because the world is not holding you back nearly as much as your own thinking is. A man can be born in poverty and still rise to great achievement if he thinks in terms of growth, service, and possibility. Another can be born in wealth and still waste it all if his thoughts are filled with defeat, excuses, and self-doubt. The difference is not in their circumstances, it is in the picture they hold of themselves in their minds. Tell yourself, "I can't," often enough, and soon you won't even try. And not trying is the surest way to guarantee the result you feared all along. I remember once meeting a young man who told me he had always wanted to be an artist, but he never pursued it. "I can't," he said. "I can't make a living at it. I can't compete with others more talented than me." And so he settled for a job he disliked, a paycheck that barely sustained him, and a life lived in quiet resignation. But notice the truth. It wasn't talent that failed him. It wasn't opportunity. It wasn't even money. It was the belief, "I can't." That belief did all the damage. That belief wrote the story of his life before he ever picked up the pen. So how do we break this chain? By changing what we allow ourselves to think, by becoming the watchman at the gate of the mind. When the thought arises, "I can't," challenge it. Ask yourself, who says so? More often than not, you'll find the only authority behind it is habit. Begin each morning by planting different seeds. Instead of "I can't," say "I will." Instead of rehearsing failure, rehearse the picture of yourself succeeding. Carry it in your mind the way a builder carries blueprints. He doesn't stand at the empty lot and say, "I can't see the house, therefore it doesn't exist." No, he sees it in his mind first, and because he holds that picture long enough, it becomes reality. The same law applies to you and me. We become what we think about. If you think you can't, you'll prove yourself right. If you think you can, you'll prove yourself right as well. The chain of "I can't" is broken not by outside help, not by luck, not by waiting for the perfect time, but by the quiet daily practice of directing your thoughts toward possibility, toward growth, toward the life you want to live. Another heavy chain that binds men and women to small lives is the belief that their circumstances dictate their destiny. You hear it in countless forms. "I wasn't born into the right family. I don't have the right education. The economy is bad. Opportunities are gone. If only I lived somewhere else. If only I had different parents. If only I had been given a better start." These words may feel comforting in the moment because they allow us to place the blame outside ourselves, but they are chains all the same. They take the immense power of the human mind and hand it over to chance, to accident, to outside conditions. And once a person believes his circumstances are the deciding factor, he ceases to try. He accepts the prison as permanent, never realizing that the walls are made of smoke and could vanish the moment he decided differently. Now here's the great truth. Life is not shaped by circumstances, it is shaped by beliefs. It is not the outer world but the inner world that determines the course of a man's life. George Bernard Shaw said it well. People are always blaming their circumstances for what they are. I don't believe in circumstances. The people who get on in this world are the people who get up and look for the circumstances they want, and if they can't find them, make them. That is the attitude of freedom. That is the way to break this chain. To stop being a victim of circumstance and become a creator of it. Consider the story of Russell Conwell's famous Acres of Diamonds. A farmer, lured by tales of riches elsewhere, sold his land and wandered the continent in search of wealth. He never found it and died in poverty. Meanwhile, the man who purchased his farm discovered it was sitting atop one of the richest diamond mines in Africa. The first farmer had been standing on untold wealth the entire time, but because he believed his fortune was elsewhere, he missed it. How many people are living the same way today? Surrounded by possibilities, standing on their own acres of diamonds, but blind to them because they are convinced that opportunity is always somewhere else, in some other circumstance, in someone else's life. The consequences of this belief are devastating. When a person believes his fate is controlled by circumstances, he surrenders his initiative. He waits, he hopes, he complains, but he does not act. And in not acting, he remains exactly where he is. That is why poverty of thought always leads to poverty of life. The man who says, "I can't succeed because of where I live," never tests that belief. He simply repeats it until it becomes true for him. But the man who says, "I will succeed here, with what I have, right where I am," begins to notice opportunities all around him. His eyes open to connections, ideas and resources that the circumstance thinker never sees. It isn't luck, it isn't chance, it is the law of thought at work. We become what we think about. So how do you free yourself from this chain? Start by identifying one belief you've been repeating about your circumstances. Write it down. Perhaps it's, "I can't save money because I don't earn enough," Or, I can't start until conditions are perfect? Then ask yourself, is this a fact, or is this a thought I've accepted as fact? You'll discover that most of the time it is the latter. Replace it with a new belief, one that empowers instead of excuses. I will begin with what I have. I will learn as I go. I will make use of the opportunities in front of me. Plant that seed, water it daily, and you'll begin to see your outer world shift. Circumstances will start to bend to your thought, because thought always precedes action, and action always reshapes environment. The truth is this: the chain of circumstance is a mirage. It looks solid only as long as you stare at it in fear. But the moment you begin to think differently, to act on your own initiative, you discover that what you thought were iron bars were only shadows. And in that moment, you step free into the life that was waiting for you all along. Once we see the chains for what they are, fear, conformity, negative beliefs, the natural question is, how do we break them? What is the key that unlocks the lock? The answer is as old as wisdom itself, and yet it is the one thing most men never do. It is to set a clear, definite goal. A man without a goal is like a ship without a captain. He may have a fine vessel, strong sails, and favorable winds, but without a charted course, he will drift until storms wreck him on the rocks, or currents carry him to some deserted shore. And that is the fate of most people. They drift, they wake up, they go to work, they come home, and they repeat the cycle year after year, without ever deciding where they want to go. Then they wonder why life feels empty, why opportunities seem scarce, why joy slips through their fingers. It is not because life has cheated them, it is because they never set the rudder. Now, why does this matter so much? Because the mind, left unfocused, fills itself with confusion, fear, and worry. It has no target, so it becomes a playground for doubt. But the moment you decide on a goal, everything changes. The mind, like a powerful engine, suddenly knows where to direct its force. Instead of scattering energy in 100 directions, it channels it into one. Instead of feeding fear, it feeds purpose. Instead of seeing obstacles, it begins to notice possibilities. The difference between a drifter and a man with a goal is the difference between night and day. One wanders in the dark, stumbling over every stone. The other walks by the light of a lamp that guides his every step. Let me give you a picture. Imagine two ships leaving harbor. One has a crew, a captain, a charted course, and a destination. 9,999 times out of 10,000, it will reach its port. The other has no captain, no crew, no chart. It simply drifts. If it makes it out of the harbor at all, it will likely end up wrecked or useless, carried wherever the winds take it. That is the picture of human life. With a clear goal, the odds are overwhelmingly in your favor. Without one, the odds are overwhelmingly against you. And yet, most people live without goals. They are like the second ship, drifting, hoping that somehow they'll end up somewhere good, when the truth is that drifting always ends in disappointment. So how do you begin? Start with one definite goal. Not 10, not a vague wish or a passing desire. One clear, written, specific goal. Ask yourself, what do I want more than anything else? What is the one thing that, if I achieved it, would give meaning and direction to my life? Write it down, carry it with you. Read it morning and night. This is not a game, this is the chart for your voyage. Once you have it, let it occupy your mind. Think about it as often as you can. Hold it before you like a compass pointing north. And here's what will happen. Gradually, the world around you will begin to rearrange itself in harmony with your goal. Ideas will come, people will appear, opportunities will surface. Not because they weren't there before, but because your mind wasn't tuned to notice them. The goal gives you focus, and focus reveals what was invisible to the drifter. This is why I have often challenged people with the 30-day test. For 30 days, take one goal and think about it every day, every hour if you can. Refuse to let negative thoughts take root. Each time fear or doubt enters, replace it with the image of your goal, as if it were already yours. Do this faithfully for 30 days and watch what happens. You'll begin to feel a strength you never felt before. You'll notice doors opening. You'll find yourself acting differently, walking differently, speaking differently. The chains will loosen, not because circumstances have changed, but because you have. You will have set your course, and life will respond as it always does to clear, definite direction. The truth is simple but profound. Success is nothing more than the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. That means the moment you set a goal and begin moving toward it, you are already successful. You have broken free of the 95% who drift. You are no longer chained. You are moving under your own power toward a life of your own choosing. That is freedom. That is the way out. There is a truth that few ever discover until it's too late. Setting a goal is only the beginning. The goal lights the way, but persistence and attitude carry you there. A man can write down the finest dream in the world, carry it in his pocket, and speak of it every morning, but if he gives up at D's, the first setback, if he allows discouragement to break his stride, he will never arrive. The road to anything worthwhile is not straight and smooth. It is winding, filled with detours, obstacles, and delays. The difference between the man who succeeds and the man who fails is not that one faces fewer obstacles, but that one keeps going in spite of them. Persistence is the chain breaker. It is the habit of refusing to quit, the quiet determination to take one more step when others stop. And here is where attitude becomes everything, because persistence without the right attitude becomes drudgery, while persistence with the right attitude becomes power. I've called attitude the magic word, because it truly is. Your attitude is nothing more than the position of your mind toward life. If it is cheerful, expectant, and confident, it tells the world, I am ready, I believe, I expect the best. And the world, like a mirror, reflects that back. But if your attitude is sour, doubtful, or resentful, you broadcast that as well, and the world responds in kind. I once knew a woman who moved to Florida with her husband, excited about a new life in the Sunday. Within months she was miserable, saying no one in the community welcomed her, no one reached out. But the truth was, her own closed, hesitant attitude had built the wall. She waited for others to make the first move, and when they didn't, she judged them cold. All the while, they had only been reflecting what she projected. That is how life works. Your environment mirrors you. Change your attitude, and the mirror changes too. Now, why is this so vital in breaking chains? Because the moment you set a goal, resistance appears. Circumstances will test you. People will doubt you. Your own mind will whisper that it's easier to quit. And if your attitude is weak, you will surrender. But if your attitude is strong, if you rise each morning with gratitude, expectation, and the conviction that you will succeed, then each setback becomes only a lesson. Each delay only a pause. Your persistence is fueled by belief rather than drained by doubt. This is why two men can face the same hardship and one emerges stronger while the other collapses. The difference is not in the hardship, but in the attitude carried through it. Think of the farmer in Conwell's story who sold his land to chase riches elsewhere, only to die penniless while the buyer discovered a diamond mine under his feet. What was missing? Attitude. He believed the treasure must be elsewhere, that his own ground was worthless. That belief led him to quit too soon, to abandon the very soil that would have made him wealthy beyond measure. The truth is, each of us already stands on acres of diamonds. The opportunities, the seeds of greatness, are beneath our feet this very moment. But they will never reveal themselves unless we persist with the attitude of expectancy, believing that right where we are, with what we have, we can create something remarkable if we simply keep going. So here's the final key. Once you set a clear goal, refuse to quit. Persist day after day, even when progress is invisible. Guard your attitude as you would a treasure, because it is. Begin each day with gratitude for what you have, expectation for what's ahead, and determination to take one more step. Do this long enough, and you'll find that the chains you once thought unbreakable have vanished. You will not only have broken free, you will have built the habit of freedom itself. And nothing in this world is stronger than a mind set on a goal, armed with persistence, and carried forward by a great attitude. So now we come full circle. We began by looking at the invisible chains that hold so many people back, chains of fear, chains of conformity, chains of negative belief. Each one subtle, each one strong, only as long as it is believed in. Fear whispers that you might fail. so you never begin. Conformity convinces you that safety lies in the crowd, so you march in circles with the 95%. Negative belief tells you that you can't, that your circumstances are too hard, that the world has conspired against you, and so you live small, never realizing that the real conspiracy was only the story in your mind. These are the chains that bind, and yet every one of them is broken the same way, by the deliberate, disciplined use of thought. We become what we think about. That is the strangest secret. That is the key. Once you understand this, you see that freedom was never outside you, it was always within. A man who sets a clear goal, who directs his mind toward it, who persists with a great attitude day after day, is already free. He is no longer at the mercy of fear, because he knows that failure is only feedback. He is no longer chained by conformity, because he no longer looks to the crowd for direction. He is no longer imprisoned by circumstance, because he understands that environment reflects him, not the other way around. Such a man lives by law, the law that whatever you think about, you become. And once you see that, you can never again return to the old illusions. So let me give you a challenge. For the next 30 days, choose one clear, definite goal. Write it down. Carry it with you. Think about it morning, noon, and night. Refuse to allow fear or doubt to take root. When a negative thought enters, replace it immediately with the image of your goal already achieved. Hold it steadily in your mind, and at the same time, keep your attitude expectant and grateful. Persist in this for 30 days, and watch what happens. You'll begin to notice changes, first within yourself, then in the world around you. You'll feel a new strength rising. You'll see opportunities you never noticed before. You'll act differently, speak differently, walk differently, and before long, you'll discover that the chains that once seemed unbreakable have fallen away. Remember this, the chains, they were never real. They were only thoughts, accepted and repeated until they hardened into habit. And thoughts can be changed. You can change them now. You can begin today to think differently, to hold a new vision of yourself, to persist with a new attitude. And when you do, life itself will bend to your thought, just as surely as the soil brings forth whatever seed is planted in it. So I leave you with this affirmation: we become what we think about. If you think freedom, you will live free. If you think chains, you will remain bound. The choice is yours, and it has always been yours. Take the 30-day test, prove it to yourself, break the chains, and walk into the life that was waiting for you all along. And when you're ready to go even further, I want to show you something even more powerful, a hidden law of success that most people never discover. It builds on everything we've covered here, and it will open doors you never thought possible. Click the next video, and let's continue this journey together.